You said he didn't like staff, lawyers, whatever, telling him that things he wanted to do were unethical or illegal. He didn't like hearing that.
No. Most of the time, we all found workarounds where it was like, we'll look into that, we'll look into that, and hope that he would forget. And he did often forget. But, there were times that he would want you to go. I can't tell you how many times as press secretary he said to me, go, kick them all out, get them all off the property, do it now, do it now. And I would walk out of there and say, yes, sir, and then pray he would forget about it. And then I would look for, rightful reasons that I couldn't push them off the property. I feel silly to this day saying that it was a very abusive type of a relationship, but it's all I know to compare it to. What I know is I saw people who were, the head of the military and the DOJ and pretty much every agency, all of his cabinet members. I never once saw anybody say like, no, sir, that's not going to happen. No. Everybody found a way to kind of work around him, which is why I agreed to do this with you, because I think that you, of all people, I don't know, can think that through. Just the psychology behind it. I don't know.
It was interesting, all of the things that ramped up to his election during the campaign at different stages. But you say once he was elected that he still was, I'll read a quote, taking an unusual interest in a young, highly attractive press wrangler, asking where the woman was, whether she would be traveling with him on foreign trips, asking you to bring the aide to his office cabin on Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
And, quote, put her on TV, keep her happy, promote her, let's bring her up here and look at her ass, end of quote. Oblivious to whether that was inappropriate or not, or did he just not care?
He didn't care. He had to know that was inappropriate. Just as a married man, let alone in a professional setting. He knew that was inappropriate. He knew.
What would you say to him when he said those kind of things to you?
So, let's just look at her ass. He did not say that to me. He said that to one of my deputies, and my deputy told me. Whenever he said, bring her up here, I would bring her up, but I would sit with her. I never, ever left her alone with him. Not once. When he would say, should she be on TV? Put her on TV. I always said, look, perhaps in the future, but right now she's a little green. She's not ready for that yet. And he would say, put her on. And that was one of those instances where I knew I could probably walk away and he would forget about it. I did try to, when I was press secretary, I tried to keep her off trips, off of especially long trips, like a foreign trip. I was successful sometimes, and sometimes I wasn't. I tried to keep her away from him as much as I could. I got a lot of grief when I wrote that in the book because people were like, you should have done more to protect her. I don't know what I have thought about it over and over. He was the president of the United States. I couldn't go to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff. He wouldn't have done anything. Tons of people in the White House knew about it. There is not a human resources office to go and say, like, hey, the president of the United States is being, who would have gone to talk? The chief of staff would have. Mark Meadows knew fully well about it. I did think about talking to Melania about it, but then I'm like, that's not perfect. I don't know. That was tough. She never came to me and said she was uncomfortable with it. She never came to me and said she felt uncomfortable with any situation. I did everything I could to never let her be alone with him. That was a really, really tough one. Yeah.
Did you ever say anything to her about what he was saying about her?
Well, I never told her about, let's look at her ass because I wasn't in the room, whatever. I did have a talk with her. I sat her down one time and I said, listen, you're being requested a lot. If you ever feel uncomfortable, please let me know. I want to make sure that you're always with someone. So I definitely had a talk with her about it. And she, at the time, was like, oh, it's fine. But I definitely had a talk with her to tell her, if you ever feel uncomfortable, please talk to me.
Yeah. Was he ever inappropriate with you?
Inappropriate. Yeah, sure. Yes. But not in that same way. he enjoyed talking to me about if I've had a boob job or any plastic surgery I've done. He one time talked to me about his lawsuit with E. Jean Carroll. And we were talking about how her allegation was that they were in a dressing room. And I said something like, I cannot imagine, if someone in a dressing room ever tried to attack me. And he was like, oh, you'd kick their ass. So he would talk to me definitely in a very personal way. He definitely talked to my ex-boyfriend. I guess he asked if I was good in bed. Mostly with me, he would talk about any like cosmetic work I had done type of a thing. He never ever propositioned me. I'm too old for him.
Yeah. You think that worked to your advantage?
Yeah. Yes. And he knew how close I was with his wife. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that helped too.
Yeah, yes.
Well, you said obviously he was aware that these things were inappropriate, but his bad judgment, you said, wasn't restricted to just personal relationships or things that crossed these kind of barriers. You talked about the fact that you heard him say things with dictators that were really troubling, that he seemed to have a fascination with these dictators that had unchecked power, and somehow or another, he really had an admiration for these people.
I mean, it seemed to me that way, yeah. He definitely got most excited if we were with, President Xi from China, obviously KJU. I mean, he himself talked about their love letters or whatever, and I was able to sit in with him and hear how he spoke to Putin, and the other two I just mentioned. And, I do talk about in the book as well. We were one time in a bilat with Erdogan from Turkey, and he turned to me randomly and he was like, Stephanie, who do you think the biggest killer is? This guy or President Xi? Now, what? I think honestly, this was like my second week on the job as press secretary. And it's like, what do you, I don't know. Am I going to send up some foreign relations craziness if I say President Xi is tougher than Erdogan? It was so crazy. And so at the time I just said, well, sure, he looks pretty tough. I don't know. And afterwards he pulled me aside and he said, it's Xi. You don't even know the things he's done. It's Xi. And so, yeah, from everything I saw behind the scenes, he seemed to kind of marvel at their power. And it was interesting to me because I have to tell you, in the beginning, everybody at the White House would joke with me too. I always was excited for the bilats with these dictators and stuff. But I think for me, it was just more of a normal person curiosity. But he seemed to really revel in it and almost want to one-up them on toughness. And this is all just me and my thoughts here. But, I write about in the book when he had a bilat with Putin, and the translator was a very attractive woman. And one of the NSC people pointed out to me, they swapped her out, Stephanie. They swapped this translator out at the end, or quickly, because of you and because of Ivanka Trump, and because they knew that it would, I'm pointing to these imaginary people, by the way, but they knew that it would distract Trump, and it did. He talked to this translator a ton, and in all the bilats I sat in, I never saw him do that ever, ever, ever again. And she was a very beautiful, dark-haired woman, and he definitely paid attention to her. So it was interesting to watch those things, for sure.